Now.
Get George St. Law Firm on the line. Call 999-9999.
Introducing the First Alert Radar Network.
With up to 10 times the resolution of other local radars and technology that can pinpoint right down to your street.
First just got faster.
You're watching News 12 on your side.
From the station that's on your side, this is News 12, First at 5.
A former UGA defensive standout is in the headlines. Next, live at 5, we have more on the arrest warrant issued for the deadly crash that took the life of a UGA staffer and teammate. Plus, we have new details on the Ohio murder-suicide that took the lives of a family with Augusta ties. But first at 5, the Alec Murdaugh trial is nearing its end. The prosecution just finished closing arguments. The defense begins theirs tomorrow. Today, jurors visited the property where the shootings of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh happened. Now, there have been more than 75 witnesses and 800 pieces of evidence. Nick Neville has more on what prosecutors tried to establish with their closing arguments.
The prosecution attempting to paint the picture of a desperate man who, faced with the possibility of having his decades-long scheme of financial crimes be exposed, murdered his wife and son.
There is only one person who had the motive, who had the means, who had the opportunity to commit these crimes, and also whose guilty conduct after these crimes betrays him. The defendant was the one person who was living a lie. The defendant is the person on which a storm was descending, and the defendant is a person where his own storm would actually mean consequences for Maggie and Paul.
Lead prosecutor Creighton Waters, in closing arguments, keying in on motive, something the state did not do in opening statements because it was not clear how much of Murdaugh's alleged financial crimes Judge Clifton Newman would allow in. Murdaugh's scheme, Waters argued, worked for a time, as the hearing on the boat crash lawsuit was canceled and the murders turned Murdaugh into a sympathetic figure. The state does not have any direct evidence tying Murdaugh to the crime, nor do they have the murder weapons. But they do have a video placing Murdaugh at the kennels just minutes before the state alleges that the killings happened. Murdaugh admitted to lying about this, but blamed it on his opioid addiction and a distrust of SLED. Waters arguing before the jury that Murdaugh fits the description of a family annihilator.
And it's certainly easy to understand when you have a middle-aged man who's outwardly successful, who has a strong family legacy, who has a prominence in the community and a reputation, but is living a lie. And that leads to, and can lead to, those pressures being overwhelming and actions like this happening. Husbands have been killing wives, unfortunately, for years, and husbands killing sons goes back as far as King Herod, probably further.
The defense argues that SLED missed evidence and singled out Alec Murdaugh as a suspect from the get-go to the exclusion of other possible suspects. They also brought forward experts who asserted that there were two shooters. In Wrdw, I'm Nick Neville.
And Judge Newman has ruled that the jury will deliberate over the weekend if needed. Turning to weather now, we're going to send things out with First Alert Chief Meteorologist Riley Hale, who's at Clarks Hill Lake for the fishing tournament going on out there. And Riley, they've had a few good days out there for this tournament.
Absolutely. Well, it's been really impressive to see some of the bags come in again today. We actually have the top 50 anglers behind me. They're meeting for their top 50 meeting to continue to fish tomorrow for day 3 here in the MLF Invitational, and we've seen some giant fish caught today. The biggest so far has been 8 pounds. I believe it was 2 or 4 ounces. On top of that, by Mr. Dakota Ebert, who is now leading this tournament. Just under him is Spencer Suffield, and they are about 34 to 35 pounds. So that is kind of the top spot right now across the tournament. That cut line was just over 26 pounds. So very impressive bags again today. Luckily, the weather did hold up. If you want to come out here tomorrow, the weather does look to stay nice for us, dropping as we head closer to midnight. Now, moving forward into tomorrow, once again, cannot rule out there is a straight thunderstorm into your Thursday planner, but we're really looking at Friday to be the impact day for us. We're going to have much more than severe weather threat in just about 10 minutes.
All right, thanks for that, Riley. New details tonight about a murder-suicide in Ohio. The family involved has ties to Augusta. The Claremont County Sheriff's Office says the mom, Teresa Kane, is responsible for shooting and killing her 3 family members. The Sheriff's Office says Teresa is also accused of shooting her daughter, Samantha, who is still in the hospital in critical condition. They also said Teresa shot herself. The incident happened after officers tried to serve civil paperwork. 72 hours later, neighbors in New Richmond are still in disbelief that a crime like this happened. One neighbor says that she can't stop thinking about how the Kane family is changed forever.
Shocking. This community, the street, there are a lot of people who walk their dogs, they walk for exercise. We kind of know each other to some extent. The people at that house we really didn't know.
And the Claremont County Sheriff's Office says their #1 focus is finding out the why of this shooting. Today, Kevin Coatney would have been 22 years old, but his life was taken after a shooting at Club 706 on Deansbridge Road last year. His sudden death still impacts his family to this day as they continue to look for answers as to who the shooter was that day. Our Nick Velan talked with the Coatney's family to learn about why this tragic killing happened.
On January 30th of last year, Kevin Coatney Jr. was murdered outside of what once was the 706 Lounge. Now, more than a year later, his family is still looking for answers. Artia Jones, who's the mother of Kevin, says her son loved fashion and was an avid dirt biker. He was even a member of the Bikes Up, Guns Down Club in Augusta. Family gathered today at his grave to celebrate his 22nd birthday. With Kevin being gone for more than a year, his mom says it's impossible to fill the void of Kevin not being around anymore.
He didn't care who you were. You were all someone special to him when you met him. He encouraged people. Like I said, he just had fun doing his dirty bike. He loved his crazy, exotic fashion, and the kids would follow. And he was just an all-around cool kid, and we miss him dearly.
And coming up all new on News 12 at 6 o'clock, I'll have more on who Kevin Coatney Jr. was and how his mother is working to bring in those responsible for his murder.
Thanks, Nick. Drag racing and reckless driving, those are the 2 charges former UGA defensive standout Jalen Carter is facing for the deadly car crash that left a teammate and a school staffer dead and 2 other people injured. The January 15th crash that killed UGA offensive lineman Devin Willock in Stafford Chandler LaCroix. Their investigation found that UGA Stafford Chandler LaCroix and Jalen Carter were driving their vehicles in a manner consistent with racing shortly after leaving the downtown Athens area at about 2:30 a.m. The toxicology report from the GBI stated that LaCroix's blood alcohol concentration was .197 at the time of the crash. It also showed that no drugs were in her system at this time. Athens Clark County investigators determined that alcohol impairment, racing, reckless driving, and speed were significant contributing factors to the crash. After the deadly accident, Jalen spoke at the NFL scouting combine, speaking on his teammate and his character.
And he never did anything wrong in his 3 years. He was supposed to graduate. Most people don't know his brother passed like that, and I'm sorry to his mama. No one should live like that. You know, no one should deserve to die like that. He never did wrong. I'm sorry for my language. He never did anything wrong.
Carter has responded to the arrest warrant, saying he is heading back to Athens to answer for the 2 misdemeanor charges and making sure that the accurate truth is presented. Well, still to come on News 12, cracking down on repeat offenders. We have more on the bond reform calls from lawmakers. Riley?
Make sure you call 911 or make sure you call someone to tell you that we don't have any.
And we are live here at the MLF Invitational looking at day 2 results and also going to have that forecast on the chance for some severe weather moving in by our Friday. Coming up in that full forecast.
It's destroyed and blighted properties like this that the city is still trying to get rid of.
All new on News 12 at 6 o'clock. We're talking about the 184 blighted properties the city did manage to remove last year and how that compares for progress in previous years.
Time and temp.
Breezy day, even away from storms. That line that you're looking at there, Mississippi into Alabama, that's going to start working its way towards us later into the afternoon, and that's when we are going to have to monitor the threat maybe for some severe storms. So keep it here for those weather updates. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast over the next several days. Temperature is going to stay warm for us. We're going to be back near 80 tomorrow, low 80s on Friday, and then heading into the weekend behind that rough weather, we do cool off some. We should be able to see our highs stay at least into the mid to low 70s Saturday and Sunday afternoon. But we're going to continue being out here live at Wildwood Park, and we'll have an update for you coming up a little later in the show.
All right, thanks for that, Riley. A bill designed to crack down on offenders who commit violent crimes while out on bond in South Carolina has just passed in the state's House of Representatives, but opponents argue it might be unconstitutional. State House reporter Mary Green has the details.
Bond reform is a top public safety priority for leaders here at the State House this year, with the governor in his State of the State address calling on lawmakers to get such a bill to his desk this session.
We have one more tool that protects one more life while affording the due process that's important to all of us. We need to do it.
Under this bill, people who commit a violent crime while out on bond for another violent offense would automatically have that initial bond revoked. Then a new bond hearing would have to be held in circuit court within 14 days. If they're granted bond on that second offense, they'd have to pay it in full, in cash. If the person is ultimately convicted of that subsequent violent crime and found to have committed it while out on bond, they'd have a mandatory additional 5 years tacked on to their prison sentence, though that could be served concurrently with their time for the offense itself. But some lawmakers argue this would be unfair and potentially unconstitutional to add on that time for someone who was found not guilty of the initial charge, because without it, they wouldn't have been out on bond in the first place.
What we face with this legislation is taking away time from individuals who very well may be innocent, and that may not bother you as long as it's not you.
With the House passing this bill, it'll next head to the Senate, which is already considering its own bond reform legislation. Reporting from the State House, I'm Mary Green.
Thanks, Mary. A family looks to change dangerous pledging practices after their son's death. Coming up, a look at consequences when student organizations take part in hazing. Stick with us.
Your safety comes first with the First Alert Radar Network. First just got faster.
You're right there.
More.com. The reviews are in, and the choice is clear. If you've been injured, call the Strong Arm.
I'd recommend John Foy and Associates to anyone needing a personal injury law firm. The total settlement put a smile on my face.
Let us help you the way we've already helped thousands of injured people.
Hazing incidents on college campuses have taken lives and injured hundreds of students, but our new national investigation finds the punishments that follow do little to curb the problem. Now a family that's paid the ultimate cost of hazing is sitting down with our national investigative team to talk about the need to drastically change the pledging system for good.
Great big brother.
Very, very supportive.
Photographs and mementos are not the only things keeping Stone Foltz's memory alive nearly 2 years after his death. Instead, a decision he made at just 16 years old to become an organ donor means his heart still beats on, his lungs still breathe, and critical pieces of his eyes still view the world that continues spinning without him in it.
So the best thing we can do is continue to spread Stone's story and help others.
Stone's story is a tragedy for his parents, Corey and Sherry, and a striking example of what some consider a national epidemic that's killed at least 60 students in the last 23 years, hazing on college campuses.
The grooming sucks them in, it brainwashes them into thinking that it's okay, everyone had to go through this.
Stone didn't get through it. The 20-year-old died in March 2021 after a hazing incident at Pi Kappa Alpha at Bowling Green State University.
No other family needs to go through this. No other young adult needs to go through this. That's our mission.
A mission to end hazing now strengthened by an unlikely source, the university that once denied any responsibility for Stone's death.
This is a historic day.
In January, the family reached a record-setting settlement with Bowling Green. Much of the university's nearly $3 million payout to the Foltzes will go to a foundation named for Stone, focused on a shared mission to eradicate hazing across the nation.
We think the pledge process needs a drastic change.
And the Foltzes' attorney, Rex Elliott, is calling for pledging to be eliminated altogether.
If we eliminate that imbalance of power, I think we have a much better chance of eliminating hazing deaths in this country.
Yet despite deaths and injuries, there's been no significant shift away from the unequal power dynamic of the pledging process. Our national investigative team found that pledging was stopped temporarily, shortened, or moved on campus following just 13 of the 265 punishable fraternity hazing incidents we examined. None resulted in outright pledging bans. The North American Interfraternity Conference, a trade group representing the nation's biggest fraternities, wouldn't talk on camera, but told us that for decades, fraternities have spent enormous resources educating students about the dangers of hazing, how to intervene and prevent it, and how to support victims.
More has to be done. We need leadership on university campuses to step up and do a whole lot more than they've done up to now.
It gives them the opportunity to show these other universities that, hey, we're gonna take charge.
It's nowhere where it needs to be yet, but it's a step forward. It's definitely a step forward.
A step the Foltzes hope will lead toward ending the rituals that rob them of the sun they see now only in pictures. Their new mission, yet another donation, turning Stone's loss into a way to save lives.
Our national team is aware of only one major fraternity, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, which has stopped pledging across the board. But even that hasn't ended hazing, with confirmed cases at several SAE chapters since their decision back in 2014. The organization declined an interview request. Stick with us. We have much more news and weather coming up after a short break.
We know insurance companies are happy to take your money every month, but after an accident, when it comes time to pay you, they'll try to keep as much of your money as they can.
Don't let them keep all your money. If you want to get all the money you deserve, call George St. Injury Lawyers at all nines.
Injured? Call Austin Jackson, the Augusta guy. A serious car accident is an urgent situation. You need a law firm that understands that and works fast to get you the answers and help you need. I'm Austin Jackson, and our law firm is fast, responsive, and ready to talk to you anytime. So call, text, or email 24/7, or meet in our office in the heart of downtown Augusta. Call me and get help now. Injured? Call Austin Jackson, the Augusta guy. 706-724-7224.